Okay, so I watched the full-on trailer, the first, as I consider it, full-on trailer for Fantastic Four First Steps, because they did show a teaser about a couple months ago. And I have to say that this trailer did a decent job in giving us a good idea, more so than the teaser did, of what the movie's going to be outside of what was already talked about and promoted and so on. And I'm not going to, first of all, I'm not going to show any video footage flipped or edited because I don't want to take any copyright chances. So I hope you understand that. But anyway, to get on to the discussion here of the trailer, the way it begins is you have this talk show host basically recapping how the Fantastic Four got their powers. So pretty much confirming what Kevin Feige and those working on the film have said, that they're not going to explore the origins. They're not going to have them go up into space and get their powers like the previous three films did. That instead the movie's going to start out with them already having the powers, and this talk show host at the beginning of the trailer, pretty much recapping it, confirms that. Basically saying that, hey, we already know the story of how they got the powers and how they came to be. So I like that. I like that, they went that direction, and then he introduces the Fantastic Four to the crowd, and then we transition to them at home, where we see the Thing asking Herbie the robot, who is a character from a late 70s animated adaptation of the Fantastic Four. And the reason he's from that, the late 70s animated adaptation, is because he was brought in to take the place of Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, due to the fact that, according to people like, Phalis, if you will, Ascent and others that have talked about, that cartoon, basically, the reason Herbie was brought in to replace Johnny Storm in that late 70s animated adaptation was because a lot of people working on the show, as well as the FCC, if you will, didn't want to encourage kids lighting themselves on fire, or at least that's what they were afraid would happen, because they were afraid kids would light themselves on fire to, excuse me, to imitate the Human Torch. So they didn't want that to happen. They didn't want kids to go and do that. So that's understandable, a little unexcusable at times, but also understandable as well as to why they had to replace Johnny Storm in the original series. Not in the original series, but in the 70s adaptation, if you will. Now, I like the fact that they did bring Herbie here in the movie to kind of basically say, hey, we're going to bring in all the lore of Fantastic Four, because Herbie did become part of the comics, even with the Human Torch as part of the team. So bringing him in to be part of this, even just as, like, let's say a house servant or a house robot and everything, or at least an assistant, I think is a good move on their part. So anyway, to get back to what's happening here, basically you see Thing asking Herbie how the sauce is coming around, and he's tasting it, and he's like, good, basically giving his approval. Johnny, you see, gets a box of cereal with a image of himself on the back, which is taken from a classic Fantastic Four comic. It's a cover of a classic Fantastic Four comic, that is. And he's getting ready to eat it because, Richard and Sue are late. And even Johnny, when he sees them, calls them out about this, saying, you're late. And they're like, late for what? And he's like, dinner. And then Thing basically says the same thing. Ben Grimm Thing says the same thing to them, says, you're late. It's kind of like a little comedy thing here, a little humorous thing where it's like, Johnny says they're late, and, they're wondering what they're late for, and then he says dinner, and then, Ben Grimm says you're late, and and then Sue and Richard are kind of like re-answer it, and then Ben hits this. Ben hits this question, towards Sue by asking her, "Are you pregnant?" And all of a sudden that gets Johnny's attention. It's like, what? And then we see them congratulating them because, he's telling his sister, oh, you're going to be the best mom ever. And then he looks at Richard saying, you're going to be the best dad ever. But then he says, oh, I'm just joking. You're out of your depth and everything. So yeah, basically, Ben pretty much can see that the real reason that they're late is they wanted to make is because of the fact. Excuse me. It's because of the fact that they wanted to confirm that being Richard and Sue, that she was expecting, and she is. So anyway, we get a little nice moment, romantic moment between Richard and Sue saying that this is not going to change their family and all that before they kiss and maybe make out. And I think, honestly, if they're going to go in a direction of a little silliness, they need to have them at least allude to them making love, and she's invisible and everything while she's doing it with Richard. So I think they need to do that. They don't have to, but I think they should. Hopefully, put that in there somehow. That's going to heed to a friendly PG-13 rating, but we'll see. But I think they do, like I said, need to do something like that to have a little, lightheartedness, a little comedic effect and all that. But that's just me. If they don't, that's fine. You want to play it straight, that's cool with me too. But I think they should do something like that. But we'll see what they do. Anyway, we do get to the moment where Shalaba, who is the Silver Surfer in this universe, because in the Prime MCU, it's Norrin Rad, I think that's his name, that becomes the Herald of Galactus. He becomes Silver Surfer, but in alternate takes, it's Shalaba. Now, they do, believe it or not, in the Silver Surfer cartoon, they do touch upon this, I believe, by having Norrad interact with another Herald of Galactus, and then he finds out it's Shalaba. Finds out it's his love. It's his love of his life. That is basically this new golden Silver Surfer for him, for Galactus and everything. So I think they do touch upon that in the Silver Surfer cartoon. Correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, here in this alternate universe, Shalaba is the Silver Surfer. She's the new Silver Surfer, if you will, that basically is the Herald of Galactus. She basically, comes down to Earth asking the Fantastic Four, are you the protectors of the world? And Sue Storm says, yes, we are. Sue Richards says, yes, we are. And then that's when she says, well, your world has been marked for death. And then she takes off, and then you have Johnny Storm going after her, in his Human Torch form, which does dissipate as he gets further into space. And as he touches her board, she does this move, flips him up, to flip him off of her, and he falls down back into Earth, obviously probably going to flame on to save himself. But point is, they do show her, and she does look good. I'm not going to deny it. She does look really good as, this universe's Silver Surfer. So I will acknowledge that. I think she does look really, really good. She does have a ominence to her and everything, and I'm really looking forward to how she plays a role in the movie. Now, apparently there have been discussions to where she will have maybe a face turn, if you will, maybe a bit of a face turn, to where she'll find out to where she'll potentially find out that Sue is pregnant with Franklin Richards, which is the son of her and Reed Richards. And, her being who she is and maybe remembering who she was, will want to protect the baby, being like, look, I understand you need to destroy worlds to satisfy your hunger. That being her saying something like that to Galactus. I can see her being like, telling him, hey, I know you need worlds to satisfy and, your hunger and everything, but this is a new life. And this new life, I feel, is going to be more powerful than even you can imagine. So I can see her going out of her way in a face turn to protect the baby, to protect Sue and all them, from Galactus, because of the fact that, her being who she is, she can probably now sense how powerful that child's going to be. When it is born and everything, and that destroying the world will basically cause I guess you could say a consequence that even Galactus can't, comprehend. But, we'll see. But there have been, speculation. There have been discussions, that's one of the plot points going forward with, with this movie. That's been one of them. But also, it looks like to me, maybe what's going to happen is you might get some kind of, I would say, interaction, if you will, between Shia LaBeouf and Johnny Storm. I could see that. Just the fact that you're having Johnny going after her and everything, which people say is reminiscing of the Rise of the Silver Surfer sequel to the original two Fantastic Four movies, that were in theaters. So, yeah, it feels reminiscing, but I feel like the way Disney is and everything, and this is Kevin Feige, that they're going to probably have some kind of, affection, attraction between them, between Johnny and Shia LaBeouf, just like we had with Star-Lord and Gamora in Guardians. Not saying it'll be on the same level, but I feel that's where we're going to be heading. I feel that's where we're going to be heading and everything as well. So I'm not going to be surprised by that. I'm not going to be surprised. Now, also her being silver and everything, I'm not saying this because I'm a fan of the melting and all that, but I feel that also she could be susceptible to being melted, being turned into goo and everything by, extreme heat, or even by Galactus for maybe turning on him or something. I don't know, but I feel that that's something we're going to see maybe in the film. We're going to see her become a puddle of goo and then maybe get reformed and everything, either by Galactus as a way of showing her punishment for turning against him or failing him and all that, and basically to make sure she remembers her place, or she might end up in an intense heat situation to where that happens, and basically it takes maybe the Fantastic Four, maybe Sue Storm and what power she has to try to help revive her and bring her back to life and all that. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what occurs. But I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that's something, we see. I would not be surprised, at all. But the trailer overall, I thought, did a good job. It definitely gave off that kind of like that threatening presence that Galactus is going to have, and that unsureness from, Fantastic Four, mostly from Reed, because he basically tells Sue that when they went beyond, the bounds of space and everything, when he got them beyond the bounds of space and everything, when they got like the powers and everything, that is what, got their attention. Now, he says their attention, he doesn't say his attention. So the key word when he tells Sue that what they did caused them to basically get the attention of Galactus, he doesn't say, like I said, he doesn't say his, he says their. Now, he could mean Galactus and Silver Surfer, Shia LaBeouf, that is. He could mean that, but he could also mean something more. But what does he mean? What does he mean if he's not alluding to Galactus and Silver Surfer? We will see. We shall see going forward. But I like the fact that he's unsure and everything. They show him basically crossing out all these equations on the board, trying to figure out, a way to avoid the world from being the world from being destroyed and everything. And then we get this image of the world in the trailer pretty much imploding. Now, we don't know if it's their Earth in their universe that's imploding, or if it's another world that's imploding, or as Chris of 3C Films put it, it could be a vision that Johnny Storm's having about, potentially what the future could be if they fail for the world. Because, again, Johnny touched basically the Silver Surfer's board and everything, and it caused him to get tossed off by her and everything. But you have to wonder if maybe that caused him to maybe, get some visions implanted into his head of what will potentially happen if they fail. So we'll find out later on. We'll find out later on exactly what that world imploding could be, if it's their version of Earth, if it's another world, or if it's a vision Johnny's seen. We shall see. Heck, it may not be Johnny seeing that vision, maybe Sue. And maybe Sue Storm, because remember, she's carrying Franklin Richards. And he's supposed to be the most powerful character in the MCU, or at least one of them. So you have to wonder if maybe she's getting those visions because of him, of what potentially could happen. We don't know. We don't know. But I do like the fact that, when you have the Fantastic Four getting ready to go up into space, I do like the fact that, you have Reed Richards telling the reporters, because one of the reporters is asking him, are we safe? And he even looks back and, he has this look of, I don't know. Because, again, he's unsure. He's unsure of exactly, what the result's going to be, should they succeed or fail. Because he doesn't have an answer yet. He doesn't have an answer yet. So, yeah, overall, I thought they did a good job with this trailer. Definitely showed off more of the fantastic car and everything and what it looks like. And, again, it's got my interest peaked. And come July, I'm definitely going to be on a superhero journey, if you will, movie-wise, theatrically movie-wise, when it comes to Superman and in this movie as well. So I'm looking forward to it. I do like the ending scene. I guess you could say the ending credits of the trailer, where you have basically Galactus walking through the city. Now there have been speculations and reports that he potentially could morph his body to be, like Godzilla size, or even bigger than the entire solar system and stuff like that. So that's going to be an interesting development to witness, an interesting kind of change for the character to behold if that's the case. And again, I cannot wait to see this movie on the big screen when it debuts on my birthday. I can't wait. I can't wait for that. But overall, it looks good, and definitely feels like it's going. It definitely feels like it's going to really just emphasize the multiverse, if you will, because again, it is another universe it's taking place in. It's focusing on the Fantastic Four only, but the way it's building up and everything to, what could, be the way of the Fantastic Four into the prime MCU universe, the way it's setting things up, it definitely feels like if we get any post-credits and end credits, it's going to be of the Fantastic Four maybe showing up in our universe. I predict that could be one of them. And I could also predict that we will, because he's always been associated with them. We will see Dr. Doom, the Tony Stark version of Dr. Doom, show up in the final credits. Because you'll have the post-credits where they'll probably show up in our world, because because of the fact that if the world gets destroyed, or however they try to save the world, it's going to result in them basically being teleported into our universe and everything. And I think that's what we'll see in a post-credit scene, is them showing up, because they'll disappear at the end. Nobody will know where they're at. You'll hear reports maybe of, they disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to the Fantastic Four. Or you might have the reports acting like they died as heroes, saving us, and da-da-da. And so that might be the way the movie initially ends. And then we'll see in a post-credit scene, this is my opinion, them showing up in the prime MCU universe, the prime MCU universe. And then in an end credits, we'll see Dr. Doom, for the first time. We'll see him for the first time, the Tony Stark one, out of their universe. See what, witness what happened to them, and then follow as well. Basically follow them into our universe, or find a way to do that. So Again, that's my prediction for a post-credit and an end credit. Post-credit, they're going to arrive in our world somehow, whether it's because their world gets destroyed or they save it, and the result is them getting blasted into our universe, or the MCU universe, if you will. And then the end credits will be Doctor Doom from their universe, seeing what happened, and then maybe using whatever power he has to find a way into the Prime MCU verse as well, or into a situation which allows him to, set the tone for Avengers Doomsday. That's just my opinion. But overall, I liked what the trailer gave us. And again, can't wait to see this on my birthday weekend. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. How did you feel about the Fantastic Four First Steps trailer that they put out? What are you looking forward to the most with it and everything? Do you think some of the things that I predict will come to pass? Do you think we might get a little funny, humorous scene with Richard and Sue kind of making out and she's invisible while they're doing it and all that? Do you think that will happen? Do you think we might have Shalaba, the Silver Surfer, end up being turned into goo, like a gooey puddle and all that as punishment, and then reformed, as well by Galactus, again, as punishment for failure and to remind her who her master is and all that? Or do you think she'll end up that way because there's too much intense heat and then she gets reformed thanks to Sue Storm and all that? And also, what do you think about the world blowing up situation? Do you think that's a vision either Johnny or Sue has? Or do you think that's another planet? Or do you think that's their world being destroyed? And also, how do you think they would end up in our world? Do you think the post-credit, end-credit scene could happen the way I'm projecting it and speculating it to potentially happen? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, guys, comment down below, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel. Also, do all the things you need to do. Follow me at TikTok at BW Roses, Twitter, aka X at BW Roses, Blue Sky as well at BW Roses. You can also find me on all your favorite audio and video podcast affiliates like iHeartRadio, iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, Audible from Amazon, Radio Public, if you will, Overcast, anywhere that the podcast, you can find mine there as well. You can also find me at rumble.com at BW Roses. You can find me at odyssey.com at BW Roses-5. You can also find me at VENMO at BW Roses. You can also find me at Barry Teespring Store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. You can also find me over at patreon.com at BW Roses. You can also support me over at Venmo and Cash App. Also find me at twitch.tv and kick.com. But guys, give me your thoughts overall on how you felt about this trailer for Fantastic Four First Steps. Again, do you think anything that I've mentioned, potentially on happening will happen, or what do you think will occur? Let me know down below, and until then, I am out.